Hi, welcome back to the Terms and Conditions. My name's Martha, and this is a show all about the things that underpin society that we don't really talk about or even acknowledge. And today I want to talk about the term feminism and how it should be a part of everyone's identity. And I want to talk about the reasons that some people reject the term feminism, and the sort of legitimacy of these reasons. And this is a pretty nuanced topic, and I think that feminism has definitely had a resurgence recently. Particularly to do with lots of celebrities coming out and, finding it as part of their identity, including Beyonce, most notably, and her big expression of the term feminist, and like standing in front of it and like being super cool, and everyone loves Beyonce. So I'm gonna get into that now. So I think there are some illegitimate reasons for rejecting feminism, but there are also some really legitimate reasons, which are founded in, deep thought and deep consideration of the movement itself, rather than just the surface stuff and the kind of social things that surround the term feminism, rather than like the movement itself. Okay, so the first reason that I find for rejecting feminism is the argument that like we're done with feminism, everyone is equal now, like there's no more work to do, women are at that same level as men in society, which I think is just it's just not true. Like you look around and it's just not true, considering how many women are still in fear when they walk down the street at night, women who are hitting the glass ceiling and unable to reach higher levels of business or government, and women who just like exist in the world, who are still catcalled, or who still are the victim of microaggressions in society. The pay gap is still 78 cents to the dollar, and while it's not necessarily like the pay gap isn't necessarily about two people in the same job, and one getting 78 cents to the dollar, but more to do with the systemic things that hold women back from reaching that dollar, that full dollar, and staying in sort of middle management and that kind of thing, where men are propped up by society. They're reassured every day that like they're the best and they can do things, whereas women are less likely to be confident within themselves, are less likely to say, I'm really up to the job. I think there's some kind of statistic that men are more likely to apply for a job that they're 60% qualified for, whereas women are more likely to apply for jobs that they're 100% qualified for. Of course that's a generalization, but men are just more confident in their abilities and their ability to woo an interviewer or rely on their capacity to kind of work the system. That's fine. I think people should be able to work the system. I think it's a flawed system. But it's usually like the white straight males who are able to climb the ranks quite quickly. And there's actually a really great podcast on the wage gap from Freakonomics, which I'll link below. Highly recommend that. The next reason that I think is really illegitimate for people to reject the term feminism is fear of perception. And this is a big one. I think people are really scared to accept it because they think that they have this archaic notion that feminists are like hairy, angry lesbians who hate men and want to kill all men, and just like want women in all the top positions and don't want equality. They want women to be on top. That's just, it's obviously ridiculous. And when you put word to that, like it does seem ridiculous. But people it's simmering below the surface for a lot of people. And I think it's okay to be concerned with the perception that people have of you. But I think feminism is so widely regarded, and it really is just about equality. Aziz Ansari, who's a really cool comedian, he said that, saying that you're not a feminist is like someone asking, what do you do for a living, and saying like, oh, I'm a doctor that's that focuses on skin, and them saying, oh, so you're a dermatologist? And then you saying, oh, no, 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 that's like far too an aggressive term for it. Like, if you believe in equality, you are a feminist. Like, that's just kind of the bottom line. You're either a feminist or a sexist. But I think it's okay to be afraid of perception. But I think in 2016, I think we can move beyond that. And the next reason that I think is illegitimate and that I've struggled with myself is the kind of humanism argument. And even this particular aspect is pretty nuanced, but I used to call myself a humanist and reject the term feminist. But I think it is important that it's like saying all lives matter. Do you know what I mean? Like, of course, all lives matter. No one's debating that. But there are people that we need to center in this debate. There are people who have been systemically ignored and pushed down who do need to be centered in this debate. And that's why Black Lives Matter is a really important movement, and so is feminism. For some of the same reasons, some different reasons. I definitely don't think they're, part and parcel, but they're both social activist movements. And it is important to center the experience of the people who have been oppressed. And that's, I used to identify as a humanist, and sometimes I do still, but I think it's pretty flawed. Anyway. Also, the argument that feminism is old and irrelevant. I'm currently reading a book that was kindly given to me by a couple of friends called Fight Like a Girl by Clementine, which is amazing. And she says, when I was a teenager, I didn't want to identify as a feminist because I thought it was like this old and irrelevant social movement. But it's still important today. It's still necessary. And there's still work we have to do. It's more fine print now. It's less, voting rights. It's less, like huge, big battles, but it's still important to cut down misogyny as it exists in like small, nuanced, usually not invisible, but less visible ways. It's still a good fight to fight, and I encourage you all to take up arms. Okay, so now I want to talk about some really legitimate reasons to reject the term feminist. And the first one is that of exclusivity. Feminism traditionally has been a very white middle class movement for women, which has been pursued because of abundant resources. So when I think of old school feminists like first and second wave, I think of like Mrs. Banks in Mary Poppins, who comes into the house wearing that like cool yellow and blue dress. I always used to think it was really cool, and she had like a hat and gloves on. She was like very fancy, and she was middle class. She was like upper middle class. She came in singing that song about suffragettes, and like that's all very well, but she had two maids who were looking after the kids. She had a babysitter on the way for an interview, and she had a husband who had a full-time job as a banker, Mr. Banks, obviously, because Disney is so literal, and she had the resources available to her that she could lend her time to this movement. And of course, like someone had to do it. Arguably, the people who did that back then have allowed us to continue it now and have made it what it is today. But at the same time, people who were from lower socioeconomic groups, who were maybe not white, not married, like had kids but didn't have a partner who had a job, or have the ability to hire someone or have someone look after the kids so they could go out. And like feminism was essentially a leisure activity. It was, you don't have to work and you don't have to look after the kids. It's something you can do in your spare time. And so we haven't had those voices, those people, those colored voices, those, disabled voices, those queer voices in the feminist space historically, because they haven't necessarily, had the resources to access those groups and to have the time to access those groups. And that tradition has kind of carried on, like there are plenty of Black feminists who don't, or Black social advocates who don't identify with feminists or say they are a Black feminist, because, they don't want to be part of that tradition of rejection. It's a bit like gay marriage, like Sarah Silverman said it best, like, I don't want to be part of a club that excludes some people, about gay marriage and gay people historically not being allowed to marry. And I think that's totally legitimate. That's totally fair to say, like, I don't want to be a feminist because historically it has rejected people. And it's rejected very clear groups of people who need to be heard, who have arguably been more oppressed than white middle-class women, with educations and husbands and money and, money to throw at a problem. And, I think that's pretty legit. Okay. Secondly, the next sort of major legitimate reason is that I think there's a big fear of the feminist community online. And the feminist community, there's this huge attack culture, and it's about calling people out. It's about saying, like, you haven't used the right word here. You have offended this group of people. When we're discussing, like, big issues, and we're not trying to offend anyone, but we're trying to, like, get to the bottom of problems, and we don't necessarily know the right lingo. We don't necessarily know the right things to say or the right arguments to have, and the right discussions to evoke. Like, you don't know until someone tells you. And I think the way that people are calling people out and trying to educate is from, like, a really negative, attacking way. And that's really discouraging. If you want to get involved with a movement, you should be enabled to. You should be allowed to, without fear of joining in and fear of, like, having your voice heard. And I think it's important that we, if we engage online, we should be able to say, like, I'm just figuring it out. Like, I don't know the right things to say. And I want you to teach me. Like, I'm here to learn. I'm not here to just talk and talk and talk and never listen. I'm here to learn. And, personally in my life, I'm like that too. I'm talking at the moment because I'm on a podcast, but, like, I'm, dying to, like, hear what everyone else has to say. And I want this to be a platform for, like, everyone. I don't want this just to be, like, the Martha show. So yeah, I think that attack culture is really damaging, and we shouldn't be calling people out. We should be calling people in. We should be, like, encouraging people to discuss without fear of terminology and, like, small things, because it's all about intention. It's all about intent of, like, how to engage with other people and coming at it from a place of kindness and a place of respect and from a place of learning and, like, wanting to learn, wanting to educate and sharing our experiences. And so, I encourage you, if you're engaging in an online community about feminism, being able to articulate that and being like, I don't have the answers. Like, this is just what I think, and, like, I'd love people to help me or to teach me, because I think that's legit. Okay. One major, like, case study I wanted to talk about was I was in an audience for Q&A once, and Michaelia Cash, who's the Minister for Women, she was asked if she was a feminist or not, whether she identified with the term feminism, and she said no, because she thought feminism was done, and feminism is over, and, like, it doesn't hold a place in society anymore. It's no longer needed. And I think if she was able to articulate a legitimate reason for rejecting feminism because feminism had rejected her, I think that's one thing. But, like, I don't think you can reject the term feminist just because, like, it doesn't suit you. Being able to reject the term feminist because it doesn't suit you is a very privileged thing. There's a lot of privilege associated with saying, like, yeah, but, like, I don't need it in my personal life, so, like, I'm not going to identify as a feminist. I don't think it's necessarily about you. I don't want to offend anyone, but, like, it's not about you. It's about the people who are invisible, who haven't been given a voice or a platform. It's about empowering yourself to empower them, and enabling discussion across all sorts of places, like obscure places, not necessarily your university, which has historically been a place for social movements and social activism, but going beyond that, like the women in homeless shelters, the women who, don't have a platform or the education to, like, speak up. Those are the women who we need to hear from the most. So I think it's the more we can embrace the term feminist for ourselves, the more we can perpetuate this cycle of destigmatizing it and empowering other people to accept that term for themselves and, filtering it down. Like, as soon as we all start believing in the same things, the sooner we can start making serious progress. And ironically, by accepting the term feminism, the less important it's going to be, because we will be solving sexism. That makes sense in my mind. I'm not sure if that makes sense in yours. But by like talking about it enough and bringing more people on board, regardless of sex or race or gender identity or sexual identity or like, ability or disability or like color, like whatever, all those people, religion, like all of the people, the more we can get everyone in on the conversation and get everyone on our level, the more we will achieve like true humanism and true humanity. But in that, I think it is so essential to like center the people and provide a platform for the people who haven't historically had a voice, and be able to like bring them up and just give like everyone a level playing field. And then by doing that, we don't have to do that work anymore. Does that make sense? Like, the more we do the work, the less work we need to do. I don't know if that makes sense. I think like it makes sense in my mind. I hope that you can unpack that in the same way that I have. I might have totally missed the mark. If I've totally missed the mark and you want your say, email me at martha@thetermsandconditions.net. I don't know, man. Like, I think the term feminism like is so important. It's so like essential to fixing so many of our problems, because I think a lot of our problems that we have with all sorts of groups of people come from misogyny. Like, our hatred towards trans people and our hatred towards gay people or like queer people comes from a place of misogyny. And I think that's a whole podcast in itself. So I'm going to save all that up, all that hatred. I'm going to bottle it inside myself, and I'll release it another time. I'm in a different location at the moment, so I'm sorry if you can hear all the traffic. I'm staying at my mum's place, which is on a busy road, and my dog keeps padding back and forth. Yeah, I'm on TV this week. If you're in Australia, I'm going to be on Channel 10 at 8:30 Sydney time. I don't know what that means for you. Google it. I don't know. It'll be on the 10 Play website later. I'm talking about porn and sexting on TV. It's going to be great. I'm really excited for it to come out and for everyone to like, I don't know, have a thought about it. Hopefully I'll be able to link it on my website and on my social media stuff. But I'd love it if you could watch me talk about porn, because it's a big deal, guys. It's a big deal, and I'm very famous, and I'm borderline Kim Kardashian, and one day someone's going to rob me of $11 million worth of jewelry. That's my goal in life. Oh, God, I shouldn't joke about that. That's so lame. But that's kind of like goals, like having $11 million worth of jewelry on you at a particular time to be robbed from you. That didn't make any sense either. Okay. I hope all of this makes sense. I hope that like you're on my same level. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please, I don't know, like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, all the things if you'd like to. If you want to keep hearing from me. And yeah, shoot me an email, martha@thetermsandconditions.net. Tweet at me, Facebook message me, slide in my DMs, whatever you want. Okay. Yeah, I hope to see you next time. I hope you watch me on TV. Let me know what you think. All the feedback is good. Okay, love you guys. Bye.